first little number is a digit we just mentioned twice. It is 2. First little number this week is 2, which is how many field goal attempts Victor Wembanyama got after a paint touch in game 1, according to the Second Spectrum tracking data. Just 2 shot attempts after a paint touch. He'd entered the finals averaging 4.5 shots off paint touches in these playoffs. And that it doesn't sound like a giant difference, 2.5 fewer. It's representative of, I think, a broader strategic tactical move that the Knicks made in trying to limit him. Wemby did get some paint touches. He was there he and Towns, the 2 highest in the game. However, when he got there, the Knicks were either trying to swarm him to get him to get off the ball or just fouling him. Like they got underneath his rolls, they got underneath his transition rim runs, and they said before he can gather and get the ball up, we are going to put him on the line. And you wound up with a concerted effort to really take away those easy paths, the entryways to the basket, where obviously we know he gets within, a step inside the free throw line. He's within arm's reach of dunking. He wound up with his 21 field goal attempts in this game. He got 1 dunk late in the third quarter and 2 layups. Those were the only arm's reach baskets he got. Everything else was a jumper or free throws. 16 of his 21 shot attempts came outside the restricted area. He only went 3 for 16 on those shot attempts. And, you talked earlier about karl-Anthony Towns deserves a ton of credit for the work that he did defensively in being physical with Wembanyama out on the perimeter, with tracking him on his drives, bumping him, but doing it without fouling a lot. Mitchell Robinson, when he came into the game, also Mitchell Robinson, able to play after breaking a bone in his hand in still murky circumstances that I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about after this series ends.
We might get a puncher's was able chance to stay hearing about that, by the way. We might get a puncher's
You
chance.
Just might.
You might.
The Knicks really didn't have to go to the much discussed OG Anunoby matchup there until in the last couple of possessions of the game, because Towns was up to the challenge and Wembanyama wasn't able to make the Knicks pay for it. So, Mitch Johnson talked about it after the game. We've got to get him going more downhill. Wembanyama's response was basically I was bad. It's not really that deep. I got to figure out how to be better. What did you make of Wemby's shot diet in game 1 and where San Antonio can try to get him a little bit cleaner to the rim moving forward in this series?
Yeah, this is one of the lowest performances I've seen from Wemby this postseason. When we did the roundtable, Dan, before the series started, the thing I was watching going into game 1 was Wemby's energy levels and whether he was going to burn himself out in the emotion and getting wrapped up in the emotion of game 1. And you heard karl-Anthony Towns after the game talk about how he had reached some sort of zen out there, getting into the arena. He felt the presence of his late mother watching over him, and he had this serenity about him, and that he was just a kid again. I don't get the same vibe from Victor Wembanyama in that game. I think he was tired, and karl-Anthony Towns was as cool as the other side of the pillow. When you talk about the rim attacks and the ability to play under pressure, karl-Anthony Towns had 11 shots at the rim in game 1, and Wemby had just 5. Jalen Brunson had 7 shots at the rim. Victor Wembanyama had just 5. So those 2 guys, again, we keep coming back to the stars of the Knicks and how they outshine the Spurs stars. In particular, Wemby played like a guard. And in his best moments, I do feel like Wemby is just relentless trying to get to the cup, rolling hard, calling for those lobs, and making sure he gets those second chance opportunities and camping out in the paint on both ends of the floor. In game 2, fact of the matter is Wemby has to play like the 7-18 guy that he is. And I thought too much.
Right.
Mitch Johnson relied on those ISO ball, just try to dribble out and try to create a shot and play hero ball down the stretch instead of getting him good opportunities at the rim. I also think that Dylan Harper deserves more minutes. I thought that was a questionable move from Mitch Johnson to not go to him down the stretch, a guy who has been bullying so many guys, which is so mind-boggling, just totally reversing the script about how a rookie guard should be playing. He tossed OG Anunoby on a drive 10 feet. And I was like, what? No one does that to OG. And, he's able to get to the cup in ways. He was 4 of 4 in the restricted area in game 1. And the stat here from ESPN Insights that Dylan Harper just passed the Admiral, David Robinson, for most points by a Spurs rookie ever. There have been some pretty good Spurs rookies. I don't know if anyone's been tracking that. But the Knicks were the team that played with more force, got to the cup, and you would not have thought that Jalen Brunson was 6'2" based on the fact of his shot chart. I compared the two this morning. One guy was living in the paint, and yes, he had some incredible backbreaking, amazing footwork, jumpers in that game down the stretch. But Jalen looked like he was on a mission to get to the cup, and I would say the opposite for Victor Wembanyama, and I expect things to change big time in game 2.